Leviticus chapter 25. We'll hold off, guys. It's okay.
Yeah.
Go with me to Leviticus chapter 25. If you get it ready, then we'll do it at the end. Okay, so Leviticus chapter 25. We're thinking in terms of sevens because the number 7 all the way through is a significant number. So we have every 7th day we have Shabbat. Every 7th year, or every 7th cycle of years, we have a Shemitah. And then every 7 cycles of 7, we end up with a Yovel. Okay, so the number 7 is a significant number all the way through what we're seeing here. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit in a moment about, there's a chapter in this book called Studying the Torah that's just, I've mentioned this book many times, that's just on the 7 code. Just on the number 7 and how it's used. So the number 7 happens to be a significant number that's used at key places throughout the Tanakh. So take your text and let's go to Leviticus chapter 25. So it says, the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land that I give you, the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years you shall sow the field, and for 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather in its fruit. But in the 7th year there shall be a Shabbat of solemn rest for the land. Notice it's a rest of the land. The land is given a rest. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap what grows of itself in your harvest, or gather the grapes of your undressed wine. It shall be a year of solemn rest for the land. The Sabbath of the land shall provide food for you, for yourself, and for your male and female slaves, and for your hired worker and your sojourner who lives with you, and for your cattle, and for the wild animals that are in your land. All its yield shall be food for you. So you can actually go into the fields on that 7th year, but you can't harvest. You're allowed to go in and get the food, but no one's allowed to harvest it. Neither the person who owns the land nor anyone else. You're allowed to go in and get what you need for sustenance, but you're not allowed to go in and just harvest.
Can't gather and store it.
You can't gather it as if it were a harvest. Here's the key. The key to this comes in verse, let's see, where did I put it up here? Verse 23. The land belongs to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. That's the key. In other words, since this belongs to him, ultimately Israel is still, in a sense, foreigners and strangers on the land. We're going to see that in just a moment. Yeah.
The sad part about Israel never did this.
True. That's a very sad part, is that if we look at the record of the prophets and what we see, we don't have Israel doing this. So this is what they were supposed to do. This is the goal they were supposed to obtain. Evidence would indicate, as we look at the prophets, that they did not do this. They did not let the land lie fallow in the 6th year. And they did not return slaves like they were supposed to, servants. So there was a lot of problems. Yes, go ahead.
This follows Genesis of the creation. It was 6 days that God labored.
Yes.
In creation, 7th he rested.
Absolutely.
For 6 years that the land labors for us, it deserves a 7th year of rest.
Right. So it's following this pattern. It's a Sabbath. The land gets a Sabbath.
Right.
And what that does is it says to everybody that the land belongs to, look at verse 23 in the same chapter. He says, the land shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine. So ultimately, while we can talk about this as the land of Israel, really he says, no, it's ultimately mine. It belongs to me. All right. Now look at verse 8. Then you shall count 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 years. Shall you give shall give you 49 years. Then you shall sound the loud trumpet on the 10th day of the 7th month, on the day of atonement. So by the way, here we go. There's two places where we have trumpets. Yom Teruah on the 1st, and on the 10th, Yom HaKippurim. Okay? So there's 2 days. Now here it's only sounded on the Yovel year. Okay? On that 49th, at the end of that 49th year. In that 7th month. That's when we start. He says, then you shall sound the loud trumpet on the 10th day of the 7th month. Notice 7th month. On the day of atonement you shall sound the trumpet throughout all your land, and you shall consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, when each of you shall return to his property, and each of you shall return to his clan. The 50th year shall be a jubilee for you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap what grows of itself, nor gather the grapes from the undressed vines. For it is a jubilee, it shall be holy to you. You may eat the produce of the field. So notice what happens. At every 7th year, people are returned. At the end of the 49, the land is returned. What you can do is you can put your land out for usage for 49 years. If it's redeemed, then you have to amateurize that remaining years and pay that back. Okay? So you can let your land out. There's 2 ways to get out of debt. If you get into debt, 2 ways to get out. You can either put yourself out there to work for somebody to pay off your debt, the person that you owe, or you can allow your land to be sold, I put sold, rented out, so to speak, for those 49, whatever amount of 49 years is left. So let's say we're counting in that 49-year period and we're at year 20. Okay? So that means you only have till that 49-year period ends. You can put your land out and say, okay, you can use the produce of my land to pay off my debt. Okay? Any questions on that?
Are these designated days for everybody, or just designated days for whoever keeps just individual pieces of land? Like, does this one person have a 50-year jubilee, and then the other people?
No, everybody's on the same cycle.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
so if you buy some land, if you get your land in that cycle, it could be like 1 year, and then you still have to do what everybody else does for that year jubilee.
Yes.
Like, okay.
So it's on a same cycle for everybody.
Okay.
All right.
If you get in debt really close to your jubilee, then you probably aren't all that upset.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at verse 6. I want to go back to verse 6 for just a
I
second.
was just curious.
Notice that this deals with, he says, the food for you, for yourself, and for your male and female servants, and for your hired worker, and the sojourner who lives with you. In other words, people who are at the margins of economic stability, they can go in and they can take this food, okay, in that year that it lies fallow. So you can see that God has compassion for those who are on the margins economically. He's finding ways, if Israel does what's right, he's finding ways to show them, here's how you make sure those who don't have land, who don't own land, that they are provided with food. Okay? So Israel is called to care for those who are on the fringe, who are on the outskirts economically. Yeah.
Not only from this year that the land was laid fallow, but also every year the corners of the field were to be left.
Yes, that's every year. Right.
And not only the corners, but after they do the harvest, they can come in and glean
Yes.
the whole property.
Right. And we're getting to that with the book of Ruth, where Ruth is allowed to come in and glean behind the harvesters. Okay. So we're coming to that with our book of Ruth. All right. So a couple of things here. What I find fascinating, I love the way the Torah deals with this on an economic level. In other words, here's what happens. There's a tendency for the wealth to be concentrated in a small percentage of people at the top. And that for more and more people to become poor. As if you had a number of seasons of bad crops, for instance, and you couldn't make your way. You couldn't feed your family for whatever reason. So you go in debt. More and more people going into debt. More and more people at the top getting richer. So the Torah says, for those people who had put their land out there to pay off their debt, that it could not just continually, like, you couldn't just keep their land forever. There had to be a reset button. Economic reset. To say, okay, after 49 years, land goes back to the original family. We're pushing the reset button on land. Every 7th year, we push the reset button on servants. They've got to go back. Every 49th year, we put a reset button on the land and say it goes back. Now, as Henry quite well pointed out, it didn't happen that way. We find in the prophets that they were not resetting. And what happened? Wealth continued to go to the top in a small percentage of people, and you had a growing middle class and an even growing larger poor. Okay? Because of this, because they were not following this. All right.
It also screwed up the Jubilee calendar, too.
Yeah, it probably screwed up a lot of things. All right. I want you to notice this. Let's go to verse 23. Verse 23. The land shall not be sold in perpetuity, for the land is mine. For you are... Now look at this. Listen to this. This is Israel. For you are strangers and sojourners. Okay? Israel are Gerim v'Toshab. They are also foreigners and strangers. You know why he puts them in that status? So that others in that status will also get consideration from them. Don't think that you're here and they're here. Remember what we have said. This is a mindset. As soon as any person or people group begin to think that they are better than another people group,
You're in trouble.
you will either have that other group enslaving or genociding the other group. This is world history. This is world history short. Okay? Look at any part of world history, and if people group A say we are here, and people group B are here, people group A will either subjugate these people into slavery or will genocide them. That's a simple overview of world history. It plays out everywhere you go. Yes.
But the Torah doesn't seem to make a distinction between those that were servants and those that were slaves.
Yes, it does. It does, because it's making a distinction between the Israelites and non-Israelites. It is, absolutely. But he's also putting Israel in the category of Ger and Toshab, which is interesting. Land is mine. You're foreigners on my land, in a sense. You're foreigners and strangers on my land. Here's the key, and he keeps saying this, and this is why what we just went through was important. He keeps saying, look, I brought you out of the land of Egypt. There's two things. Now you're my servants, number one, and I don't ever want you to do what was done to you. So you know what happened to you. Don't ever let that happen to anybody else. Let me say it this way. Here's a short version of why we have the one commandment and then really the two. How you treat other people is really how you're treating God.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All God's creation.
Because
They're a creation from God.
he says it's with me.
How you treat another person is really how you are treating God.
Yeah. Whatever you've done to people, you've done unto me.
Yeah, whatever you've done unto the least of these, you've done unto me.
Yeah.
If he made them, then how you treat them is a reflection of how you treat him. You won't treat him any differently, really. If you show compassion, if you show kindness, if you show consideration, we tend to think that there's just two tracks. Well, I can love God, but I can't really love my fellow man. I don't have to love them. I can just kind of marginalize them and push them to the side. And the Torah says, no, how you really react and interact with people is really how you're interacting and dealing with God. You can't separate the two. This is why the two great commandments are, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and love your neighbor as yourself. You really can't separate the two. We like to act like there's two tracks, but there's really one track. Yeah.
Rentals not only applies to Israel, but the whole earth belongs to God. We are just sojourners.
Absolutely. We all are renters. We like to think we're owners. The earth is the Lord's and fullness thereof. It all belongs ultimately to him.
cattle on 10,000 hills belong to him.
Yeah, it all belongs to him. Now we get to own it for a period of time. We get to work with it for a period of time. But it doesn't ultimately belong to us. Let that sink in just for a moment. How you treat other people is really how you treat and think about God.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people.
All right.
Okay, like me.
Go with me to verse 25. If your brother, now notice it's your brother. That means he's with you. And by the way, did you notice at the end of the portion I just read, I want you to notice this. He says, you shall allow, verse 23. He says, for you are Gerim and temporary residents. You are with me. This with you language is covenantal. The only reason you, Israel, have anything is because I entered into covenant with you. I made covenant with you. So that language of with you is all over the place. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. You know why you're going to be okay? Because I'm with you. You know why it's going to work out? Because I'm with you. When you need me, I'll be with you. And what is he to be called? Immanuel, God with us. And what does Yeshua say? The last thing he says, I will be with you, even to the end of the age. He's basically saying, look, it's going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. Because you know why? I'm in charge. I'm king. And it's going to be good. It will be good. All right, let's continue reading in verse 25. If your brother becomes poor and sells part of his property, then his nearest redeemer shall come and redeem what his brother has sold. If a man has no one to redeem it and then himself becomes prosperous and finds sufficient means to redeem it, let him calculate the years since he sold it and buy back the balance to the man to whom he sold it and then return to his property. All right. But if he does not have sufficient means to recover it, then what he sold to remain in the land, hand to the buyer until the year of the Yovel. In the Yovel, it shall be released and he shall return to his property. Verse 29 goes on to talk about if a man sells a dwelling house in a walled city, he may redeem it. He shall have the right of redemption. If it is not redeemed within a full year, then the house in the walled city shall belong in perpetuity to the buyer. This is within the city. But the houses of the villages that have no walls around them shall be classified with the fields of the land. They may be redeemed, and they shall be released in the Yovel. As for the city of the Levites may redeem at any time the houses in the cities they possess. And if one of the Levites exercises his right of redemption, then the house that was sold in a city they possess shall be released in the Yovel. For the houses in the cities of the Levites are their possession among the people of Israel. But the fields of pasture land belonging to their cities may not be sold, for that is their possession forever. Look at verse 35. If your brother becomes poor and cannot maintain himself with you, I'm going to show you something here now. This is from this book, Studying the Torah. This is chapter 20. We're in chapter 25. Listen to this. Listen to how many times it says, with you. This is from verse 39 forward. It says, as a hired worker and as a sojourner, he shall be with you and shall serve with you, both he and his children with you. Anyway, 7 times in this section it says with you. He's making the point to say, he's your brother. You can't let him go hungry. You can't let him become destitute to the point that he has to beg. Give him food so that he retains dignity. And after all, he's your brother. It keeps saying that. He's your brother and he's with you. In that section, all the way through, 7 times, he's with you. He's with you. He's with you. Interestingly enough, notice what God said. I'll be with you. You know how I'm going to be with you? When you're with your brother. When you're with your brother, I'll be with you. If you choose not to be with him, I can walk away from you too. And we'll have every right to do so. However, if you stay with him, I'll stay with you. Yeah.
I had this thought, it's really too bad that Israel didn't keep it the way God planned it, because it's almost like God could have made, that was our world's example of how things would work really, really well. And it would have, I'm not thinking it's only their fault, but I'm just saying, if they would have been that example for the rest of the world, see how this works, guys, everyone's eating, and then, because look at things now with all the crazy farming issues and stuff. So it
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good point. Look at Exodus. For those of you who have it, somebody go with me to Exodus 21. Who has Exodus 21 available? Read Exodus 21, 2 through 11. I want to read that. This is talking about if you buy a Hebrew servant. Who can read me Exodus 21? Stand up and read for us, please. Exodus 21. Start with verse 2 and read through verse 11.
If you buy a Hebrew servant, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go free without paying anything. If he comes in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he is married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. But if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his master shall bring him to God, and shall bring him to the door or to the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. If a man sells his daughter to be a female servant, she shall not go out as the male servants do. If she doesn't please her master, who has married himself to her, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has dealt deceitfully with her. If he marries her to his son, he shall deal with her as a daughter. If he takes another wife to himself, he shall not diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital rights. If he doesn't do these 3 things for her, she may go free without paying any money.
Okay, 7 times in that section, 7 times it says, go out. Go out. It's what they're driving at is this. If someone has to pay off their debt and goes into indebted servitude to you, think this way. They're going out. They're going to go out. He keeps hammering. They go out. They go out. Why? Because he doesn't want you thinking in terms of ownership. They're going to leave. They need to leave at some point. So he's already building this. They're going to lead into the way he puts this. They're going to be going out. They may have to come in for a while in order to make sustenance, but think in terms of them going out. Yeah, go ahead.
The NIV says that he will bring them forth together. Is that
Where's that at?
when? Sorry. In verse 6, then his master must take him before the judges. Is that just translation flaw?
Yes, that's for putting his ear to the doorpost.
Because she said before God.
Well, you could translate it either way,
Yeah.
because the word, I think it's Elohim, which it is Elohim. The Hebrew is Elohim. So some of your translations are translating it judges, and some are translating it God. It's a translation issue, because some have argued that Elohim the judges stand in for God, therefore they can be called Elohim. The text just says Elohim, so it's a translational issue. Yes.
I think that scripture is trying to tell us that we should all be like that servant. We should all love our Lord and Savior so much that we would be his servant. And I think that that's what Paul was talking about when he wanted to receive the mark, strove for the mark of high calling, was to hear our master say, well done, you good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your Lord.
Right. And you notice how Paul opens every one of his letters? Paul, a bondservant of Messiah. He opens every one of his letters this way.
Dickov, the same thing.
Yeah. Think about this. Here's one of the big issues that we have, by the way. The numbers are staggering. I was talking with somebody today who teaches financial classes this week, somebody who teaches financial classes on people to help people get out of debt. You guys will not believe how many people in this country are in debt to $10,000 plus. The limit, they're $10,000 plus in debt. The numbers are staggering.
So are you
And here's the
talking-
re- huh?
Are you talking credit card debt?
Credit card debt. Credit card debt. Now here's the issue. And we're gonna discuss one of the reasons why we stay in debt here. And Yod-Heh Vav-Heh says, here's something that will curb that. Go with me to verse 35
Of chapter 21.
of chapter 25, Leviticus. Sorry. If your brother becomes poor and cannot maintain himself with you, notice that with you, you shall support him as though he were a stranger and a sojourner, and he shall live with you. Now look at, here it is. Take no interest from him or profit. There's our issue.
Yeah.
Interest. We have people paying for things 2, 3, 4 times over because of interest. So he says, if you give your brother a loan, make sure it's a no-interest loan. They pay back the principal, but they don't pay back interest when it's your brother. Because here's what's happening in our culture. We have people who are perpetually in debt, and one of the reasons is all they're ever paying is the principal. They're never paying. Huh? What? They're paying the interest. Sorry, they're not paying anything down on the principal. So the debt stays there, and all that happens is
The rich get rich.
the rich get richer. One of my daughters, has people come to her every week, and there's now these companies have grown up all over that are doing debt consolidation, trying to get people out of debt
But they're making money doing it.
because they come with multiple debts, and it weighs them down. They can't do what they need to do. All kinds of problems. Yeah.
You're right, interest is a lot of it, but I would suggest that materialism and living beyond your own means is probably
I agree.
the underlying issue there.
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who want to live beyond their means. And we live in a culture that says, if I want it now.
And you deserve it.
And I deserve it now, so I can just go and charge it on a credit card. Here's the problem. That credit card's 19% interest.
Kill it.
So now there was a system. I don't know if you guys remember this. Since my parents were in the military, some of you won't, but even some of your other stores used to have this. It was called layaway.
Yes, I remember layaway.
And here's what layaway was. Layaway was where they took it off the floor, what you wanted, and they put it in a storage room. And then every week, now you didn't get it, every week you went and made a payment on it.
Yes.
Or every month. And you go make a payment, and when you paid it off, they gave it to
They
you.
gave it to you, yeah.
It was layaway until such time as you could pay it off. Now we say, who needs layaway? I can just whip out a plastic card, have it right now, and I'll pay 17 to 19% interest.
Like an idiot.
Compounded.
Now I'm going to pay for that. Now I'm going to pay for this 2 to 3 times over. And what happens? Rich get richer, poor get poor.
And that's the other thing is the math. People think they're only paying 20% extra. No, that's 20% compounded over however long it takes you to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to pay down.
Which, as you said, kind of ends up being 2 to 3 times.
Yeah, it ends up that you pay for it 2 or 3 times over by the time you pay for it.
Yeah, I owe so much for school loans, and over half of it is interest.
Yeah, I want to.
And I'm like, I only borrowed like 40 grand from you. I owe 90.
Yeah, do you realize how many people in our culture right now are in debt for student loans?
Yeah, like most.
Tons.
I am.
Anybody who's
Student
in
loans.
college,
Killer.
Huge. And some of them are low interest, but they're still.
Yeah, that's a joke.
That's a joke because you're still paying on the principal.
Sometimes they even tempt you with, like, you have to pay for 2 months or something, but they still charge you the interest for 2 months. And then you have to, so everyone's like, oh, I don't have to pay for a while, but then,
Yeah. On the second page I gave you.
Yeah.
On the second page I gave you, look at the top of the page. Here's some Torah commands regarding slaves, regarding servants. Let's look at these real quick. Number 1, a servant or slave, you can say servant. A slave or servant should not work on the Sabbath. They get the Sabbath off. You can't continually work people and work them without giving them a day off. Number 2, unlike other, this is huge. This is huge, you guys. Unlike other nations, Israel should not extradite runaway slaves from other nations. Other nations surrounding Israel had treaties with these nations to where runaway slaves would be returned and then killed. As a way of saying, you may run, but we're going to get you back, and when we get you back, we're going to make it where you won't ever run again. We're going to make a lesson out of you.
All better to Philemon.
Yes. Yeah, that's why we end up with the, you know what's interesting is nobody in the apostolic scriptures calls for the reduction of slavery. You know why? Because slavery was so much a part of the Roman Empire, it would have collapsed the economy. If anybody would have called for the abolition, thank you, of slavery in the first century with Rome, you would have, if you said all slaves rebel, all those who are Christ followers, slaves, rebel, you would have crippled the economy of Rome. It was that rampant. So you have the Apostle Paul who writes to Philemon and says, Onesimus is profitable to me. And I like what Paul says. He says, he's a fellow brother now in Christ. I need you to release him. And then Paul does this. This is interesting. He says, put it on my account. I brought you into the faith. You owe me one. I'm paraphrasing. But you owe me one. So I want this one. Let him stay with me. And that's the closest we get to this reduction of slavery in the first century.
One slave off.
Yeah, one slave, yeah. Yes.
If I remember correctly, after the Civil War, abolishing slavery actually did.
Did what?
It actually did collapse the Southern.
It did, yes. We had economic problems in the South. Yeah, because you take the bigger part of the workforce. All right, number 3. Slaves must not go away empty-handed, but with enough to sustain them. How good of a owner should you be? You should be such a good owner that those who work for you say, I want to work for you forever. I want to be a perpetual servant of yours because you treat me with such kindness and with such respect. Yeah.
And that's an important thing. You know, the word servant or slave in our culture has very negative connotations. In the Bible, the word slave and servant, they were treated a whole lot better. They were almost family members.
They were supposed to be treated with dignity and respect.
With young kids in the family, they were supervising the kids. They helped raise the kids. They were very important, and they were treated a whole lot.
Yes, absolutely. That goes to number 4, or actually number 5. Slave number 4. Slaves bought or born to a priest may eat his portion. Number 5, here it is. No slave is to be treated in a ruthless fashion. Why? Because you know what it's like to be slaves. Yeah. This is why we have to celebrate Passover, because it teaches us about slavery. That you cannot build your kingdom off the back of somebody else by destroying them. Number 6, this goes to the point as well. No physical abuse of slaves are tolerated. Number 7, slaves are released after 6 years.
Done.
Now, think about this. Think about this. Just for a moment, I just want to mention this, and then we'll go to our video here. We still have, this is 2017, we still have countries in this world where there is slavery.
Oh, yeah.
That boggles the mind.
More like the prostitution thing.
Sex slave traffic is one of the biggest.
Other slaves too.
Oh.
Yeah,
we have countries that are behind this kind of nonsense, where people, and especially women, are brutalized and are part of sex slave trade. And they come to America. We're naive if we think that it doesn't come here. It does come here.
We have people who will pay for it to be here.
Yeah,
and are profiting from it.
Because here's the reason. There's a lot of money involved. Millions of dollars, billions of dollars. So there are those who within Christianity who are working to eradicate this and try to work with organizations and others and governments to say, hey, look, this has got to be curbed. We've got to stop this. Yeah, 1 and 2. Go ahead.
Because of Hollywood and television, probably the greater portion of those in the United States are slaves, not to a political thing, but to a materialistic society, and slave to a financial world.
Yeah. So if you are in debt, you are a slave to the lender. And it can be a cruel lender. So one has to ask, what do we do? This, we have to work through this. We have to find Torah ways to work through this. The Torah gives us the answers. We have to try to apply the answers to our lives and say, how do we do this?
With some of our credit card debt, we put ourselves as slaves to pay off debt, because then we are required to go to work to get this paid back and work overtime, work weekends, holidays, sometimes Sabbaths, because we have put ourselves indentured to Visa, to MasterCard, to whatever the case may be.
Yeah, so it's something we have to think about. I think we have to think about long and hard how we eradicate debt and work towards debt eradication, because it burdens so many people.
Not only individuals, but the nation, our nation as a whole.
Yeah.
We're so greatly in debt to the point of where every person in the United States was to sell everything they owned. We couldn't pay that debt off.
Yeah. Yeah, we have some problems. There's no doubt about that. Absolutely. So I'm talking more on the personal level, but we have work to do. Bottom line is this: we have work to do. Now let's go ahead and show this. This is we had double sections this time. We had Bahar and then Bechukotai. So Bahar in the mountain, referring to Mount Sinai, and then Bechukotai, that is in the statutes, with the statutes. So this is going to show you how the last 3 chapters 25 deal with Yovel and release of the land, then chapter 26, the blessings and the curses, and then chapter 27 dealing with Erechim. So go ahead and...
Vayikra has been a pretty important and surprisingly interesting book. We learned about laws of Mishkan, sacrifices, purity, holiness, and how to live with God. And now, we finally reach the end of the book. So what is our epic conclusion going to be? About communicating with God? Is it about how to see holiness in our fellow people? How to get better at all of our relationships? What is it? Actually, the final chapter seems completely anticlimactic. It's all about laws pertaining to offering tribute to God, what is known as the laws of Erechim, of value. Specifically, if I pledge something to God, and then I need to swap it for something else, God tells Moses a whole list of formulas for how to determine the value of my pledge. For example, and if the offering that one pledges to God is a cattle, then it's worth this much. And if it's from an impure animal, it's worth this much. And the list goes on and on.
What? That's not spiritual. This is supposed to be our epic conclusion? We finished talking about tributes to God way back in the beginning of this book, when we talked about Korbanot. So why are these laws here? And why were they chosen to end a book all about living together with God? This week on The Parshat Experiment. Hi, I'm David Block.
And I'm Elu Shalek.
And welcome to The Parshat Experiment. As we mentioned, that theme of giving tribute to God seems pretty similar to Korbanot, the tribute offered to God at the very beginning of Vayikra. But the similarities don't stop there. Both are about sanctifying something for a godly purpose. And both talk about offering firsts, either fruit or animals. And it's not just the themes that are similar. it's also the language. Take a look at the list of laws in the first 7 chapters of Leviticus. It follows a very similar if-then formula as in the very last chapter of Leviticus. Adam ki akriv mikem korban laHashem. If a person wants to bring an offering to God, im olah korbano min habakar. If the offering is of cattle, then these are the rules. The im min hatzon, and if it's from sheep, these are the rules, and so on.
And look at how each section ends. The long list of korbanot in chapter 7 ends with, "These are all the laws of all the offerings, asher tzivah Hashem et Moshe b'Har Sinai," that God had commanded Moses at Mount Sinai. And the last verse of chapter 27, "Ela hamitzvot asher tzivah Hashem et Moshe el bnei Yisrael b'Har Sinai." These are the laws that God had commanded Moses to tell the Israelites at Mount Sinai. It really does seem like these two sections parallel one another. Okay, so the last section mirrors the first. That's interesting. But maybe, if we keep looking, we'll find that these two sections aren't the only ones that correspond. Maybe these parallels are actually the first layer of a chiasm. In a chiasm, or atbashta, the first section is mirrored by the last section. The second is mirrored by the second to last. Third by third to last, etc. And all of it converges to the center, the main idea which everything else revolves around. And if that's the case, then we understand why this section on Abraham ends the book of Vayikra, because it mirrors the first section on Korbanot. Let's continue with the text and see if we can find more parallels to test our theory.
Right after chapter 7, we're given laws about the priests who serve in the Mishkan and their elaborate induction ceremony. The Kohanim are told, "Umipatach ohel moed lo tetzu shiv'at yamim," and you should not leave the tent's entrance for 7 days. And then a few verses later, "Vayehi bayom hashmini," and it was on the 8th day. Time seems to play a big role here, counting 7 days and on the 8th day. And right after time, we hear about the induction ceremony of the Mishkan itself and how God personally inaugurated its service. "Vatitzei eish milifnei Hashem, vatochal al hamizbeach," and a flame went forth from God and consumed the very first offering brought on the altar. Do we see anything about these 3 elements, priests, time, and Mishkan, at the end of Leviticus?
In chapters 21 and 22, we get new laws regarding priests, this time about those ineligible to serve in the Mishkan. For example, "Lenefesh lo yitama be'ama," priests should not go near a dead body, "ki im sheiro hakarov elav," except for his close relatives. So, the priests are back, and next up, the focus shifts to time. "Shor o chesed o eis ki yivaleh ve'haya shivat yamim tachat imo." When a bull or sheep or goat is born, it stays with its mother for 7 days. "Umiyom hashmini ba'ala yevaseh korban ishel la'Hashem." And from the 8th day and on, it can be accepted as an offering. Again, wait for 7 days, and on the 8th day, you can proceed. Then, chapter 23 introduces the holidays, which are all about time, and with those same numbers. Shabbat is on the 7th day. Passover is 7 days. Sukkot is 7 days, with an 8th day holiday.
So, what should we see next? Well, if the parallels continue, the next section would be laws pertaining to the Mishkan service, right? The problem is, that's not what appears. Instead, chapters 25 and 26 are about land. 25 is about Shemitah and Yoga, and 26 lists the benefits of land which come from following God. So, we're stuck. The parallels end. But maybe not. Yes, there's no actual Mishkan in chapters 25 and 26, but is there the idea of the Mishkan? As we've discussed in past videos, the Mishkan is a place we created for God, where we get to live together with Him. And what is land? Land, Israel, is the place that God created for us, where we can live together with Him. It seems like maybe they're actually the same thing. Maybe the Mishkan on the microcosmic level is what land is on the macrocosmic level. They're both places to live together with God. So maybe Mishkan was the wrong title for this section. It's more like sacred space. In fact, Maybe these three groupings, priests, time, and space, are really just one section about serving God in sacred time and sacred space.
As you might remember, chapters 11 through 15 are all about those who become tameh, ritually impure, like a yoledet, or someone who contracts saras. And it talks about the process they go through to become tahor, ritually pure, and sometimes even kadosh, holy. And then the parallel section, chapters 18 through 20, is about how not to become tameh through things like idol worship or inappropriate sexual relationships, about how to make sure to stay tahor, and how to achieve kedusha by respecting and creating space for others.
And if that's not enough, look at the precise language. In the beginning of the first section, it says, "V'hikadishtem v'hitem kedoshim, ki kadosh ani." Sanctify yourselves and you'll be holy, because I'm holy. And it concludes, "Zot Torah behema ha'of, v'chol nefesh ha'chaya ha'nesed hamayim." Those are the laws of the animals, birds, and all living things that creep in the water. L'havdil ben hatamei u'ben hatahor, u'ben ha'chaya ha'ne'echelet, u'ben ha'chaya asher lo te'echelet, in order to separate between the impure and pure, and between animals that you can and can't eat. And now, look at the last verses of chapter 20, the end of the second section. And you should separate between pure and impure animals and birds. And you should be holy to me, because I, God, am holy.
Look at that. They're almost perfect reflections of each other. Both summary verses charge us to separate between tameh and tahor animals, and both charge us to be holy, kadosh, because God is holy. And finally, we get to the middle, the center of the chiasm, which we've been building towards. And what is this epic center? Oddly enough, it is the strange laws of the Yom Kippur service in the inner chambers of the Mishnah. Is that what we've really been building up to? Why does the book of Vayikra seem to revolve around the Yom Kippur service, of all things?
Well, what is the essence of the Yom Kippur service? As the Reformers spoke about in a previous Aparego video, linked below, the highlight of the Yom Kippur service was when the high priest would enter the Holy of Holies, the place where God's presence, his cloud of glory, rested above the ark. Only once a year is the Kohen Gadol allowed to enter. He would bring incense that would rise up in a cloud. And the cloud of the incense would cover the top of the ark. At the apex of the Yom Kippur service, our terrestrial cloud of incense would merge with the heavenly cloud of glory. It was a moment of the most intimate contact between humanity and the divine. That moment was all about achieving closeness.
That's the heart of the chiasm and the center of Leviticus. The Yom Kippur service shows us what it looks like when we can reach the pinnacle of our relationship with God, when our clouds meet and connect once a year in the heart of the Mishnah. And that's how the center really illuminates the entire book. That closeness with God that we experience through the Yom Kippur service, it radiates outwards in both directions of Vayikra. When our cloud merges with God's, we are so connected to Him, and we see the potential for how closely we can live with God, both in the Mishkan and in the land.
Let's pull back the zoom lens to really see this. Back at Sinai, we experienced revelation. We met God. And Vayikra, this massive list of laws for how to be close with God, is a consequence of meeting God. We have a Mishkan now, a portable Sinai, a way to take God with us everywhere. And we have to be more conscious and sensitive to the divine presence, now that God is actively with us. The first half of the chiasm is all about this portable Sinai, the Mishkan. We bring sacrifices to God in the Mishkan. We see laws of the priests in the Mishkan, time in the Mishkan, the inauguration of the Mishkan. Even the laws of Tumah and Tahara are talked about in terms of entering the Mishkan. V'zartem et bnei Yisrael mitumatam. Israel must be careful of their impurity. V'lo yamutu b'tumatam et hamam et mishkani asher b'toham. Lest they die in their impurity when they contaminate my Mishkan.
But serving God in the Mishkan is just a microcosm of our relationship with Him. The second half of the book is the macrocosm of that same relationship. Once we've learned how to serve God in His special place, now that we've tasted what it means to live with God in such a concentrated, undistracted way, only then are we ready to radiate that closeness outside the Mishkan and into our daily lives. So we come back to sacrifices. But now, it's not about the laws of communal korbanot the priest offers in the Mishkan. It's about Erevin, about our individual, voluntary tributes to God, all in our own personal attempt to give and come close to Him. We come back to priests, time, and sacred space. But now, it's about what priests must do to appropriately represent the nation, and about how we should serve God in our space through Shemitah and other agricultural laws, and time during holidays. We come back to Tumah, but now it's framed within the context of the surrounding land. Al titamu b'chol eleh. Don't become impure with these transgressions. Why? Ki b'chol eleh nitmeu hagoyim asher ani mishalech b'necha. Because all the other nations, which I'm sending away before you, made themselves impure with them. V'titmah haaretz, and it made the land impure.
The book of Leviticus reveals a masterfully structured process. We must learn how to live with God in His world, so that we can learn how to bring God into our world. And the key to living with God is that moment of the most intimate closeness, when our cloud and God's cloud meet in the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur. It's a great symbol of the love between us and our Creator. It makes our obligations to God in His space meaningful. It makes our lives meaningful. It's as though God's telling us, only once you understand the potential of our closeness and how you can achieve it, can you live with me in every place, at every moment.
Join us next week as we begin the book of Bamidbar on the Parsha experiment.
All right, stand with me. Go ahead.
I have one quick thing. I heard that it's been a long time since I've heard this, but I remember somebody saying the whole Torah has that same kind of a pattern in the cipher.
I think so.
Number skip. The first two books have a number skip going the normal way, and the last two books have a number skip of the same word going the other direction, and Leviticus has a completely different word with a different number skip. Anyway.
Yeah, there's all kinds of patterns.
Yeah.
We could spend lifetimes on the patterns. They're all there.
They're very cool.
They're very cool. Yeah, there's patterns. I've showed you how that, like you have in Genesis, it's the word toledot. There's 10 toledot. In Exodus, how you have the tabernacle, 7 phases of the tabernacle, and then the Sabbath. Leviticus has an overlay. All of them have an overlay. And then there's master overlays of themes. Each of the poetic sections of the Torah, every poetic section of the Torah has a messianic prophecy. So it's very, very masterfully done with incredible intent. All right, please.